Okay, we'll close this out and go on to item 7.2, consideration of a letter documenting written comments in response to CAL FIRE's State Responsibility Area, SRA, Fire Hazard Severity Zones, FHSZ maps, and this is from our admin office.
Good morning, board members. I'm Matthew Rothstein, Deputy County Administrative Officer. It's my privilege to present this item. You will recall representatives from CAL FIRE presented draft State Responsibility Area Fire Hazard Severity Zones maps during a public hearing held concurrently with your board's meeting on Tuesday, January 24, 2023. During that meeting, we were advised public comment would be received and your board voiced support of preparing a letter to document Lake County's concerns. Multiple members of the public expressed concerns that failure to show potential effects of mitigation efforts alongside depictions of the worst-case wildfire events may have the unintended effect of demotivating those engaged in mitigation work. The 50-year time horizon is contributory to that, as discussed in the draft letter presented to your board. Additionally, concern was shared that fire insurance rates, which can already be prohibitive for many in some areas of Lake County, will not be positively affected by the maps as presented. And staff and your board understand that insurance companies use alternative models to evaluate risk, but comments shared during the public hearing in January suggest that this still bears mentioning. Written comments are due April 4, and as you'll see, our Chief Climate Resiliency Officer, Terry Logston, is here to answer any questions. This concludes administration's introductory comments, and we'll look forward to your input.
Anything to add?
The only thing that I would add is I had the opportunity to attend the monthly fire chiefs meeting last week, and they discussed the insurance companies and the maps to a small degree. And one of the things that I can't recall which fire chief said it, but it really struck me, is that it is illegal in the state of California for the insurance companies to look at these maps. It's not that they don't, but they're not supposed to take it into consideration. What they're supposed to take into consideration is the CWPP, the Community Wildfire Protection Plan. So I thought that was of interest. But the maps, I think that your letter is good. Having all of the information in one location, I think, is helpful, meaning the different layers on the GIS of all the amazing work that we have going on in Lake County with the Firewise communities, the 3 fire safe councils. It would be, if you're going to look at the map, you might as well be able to see other layers where we're taking really decisive action.
There's just one line in the letter that I just have a hard time with, and that is in the second paragraph, and it says, from 2011 to 2021, 2/3 of our county's landmass in Lake County was consumed by wildfire. And where it says greatly reducing the potential for large fires, I don't think that we're seeing a reduction. We're seeing a difference in the ecological response and recovery from fires. So maybe greatly changing the potential, but I don't feel like we have any reduced risk, because within 2 to 3 years we have all this chaparral and we have all these things growing up. And now, I mean, everywhere in the burn scar of the Valley Fire is fire ready now. So that was the only thing that kind of struck me. But I don't know what everyone else feels about that. Go ahead.
So for transparency purposes, I tried tackling creating this letter, nothing even remotely close to what's in front of you. Really appreciate the work of admin staff to shine up my lump of coal that I provided them. But the idea is, if you look at some of the fires that we had, I think LNU was one of the perfect examples where we can see it kind of smoldering in areas where the Valley Fire was still, it burned still, but not in the same way, and you can see it going around the shape of the previous fire scar. So maybe the timeline from 2011 to now might be so long that time frame is incorrect to say that statement. But I do believe that if it's a recent fire within the last 5 years, typically you will start seeing some of the like puzzle pieces coming together when you look at one fire and the next fire alongside of that. Now, again, that's just based on my limited personal experience of reviewing some of these things and looking at the fires. No, I'm not going to say there's science behind that other than just looking at maps and seeing how it fits. Kind of like looking at how South America fits right with Africa. So it's just, it does have an impact, but it's definitely a limited impact. I will agree with that.
Well, I would just, if we could just say it changes the potential for large fires, and then we're not. I think reducing is more than what we can expect, I think. Supervisor Green?
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to propose a small edit as well. On page 2 in the third paragraph, near the end of the second sentence, it says, quote, very high risk category. I think the accurate term would be hazard category. And to be clear, although it was not an easy concept for me to absorb at first go around, by the second time we went around it, CAL FIRE did attempt, and I think successfully, make the point that these maps assess fire hazard, not fire risk, and the two terms are not to be used interchangeably. This is very similar to a planning document that might identify on maps where a 100-year floodplain is. This is a different thing. It's a fire, but as stated when CAL FIRE was here presenting the maps, the idea that virtually all of the county now is going to be mapped into the very high, the highest of the high hazard category is appropriate, totally appropriate. And although we attempt to parse their methodology and we want to get credit somehow for mitigation efforts, again, our mitigation efforts are our efforts, and those are addressed at reducing fire risk in specific communities, in specific subdivisions. So rather than tell CAL FIRE through this letter that they should add some layers to discuss things that they haven't been chartered with creating, it is hard enough to map an entire state in terms of its potential for fire hazard over a long period of time. We're asking them to add layers on a much shorter time scale. Oh, we burned half the county in the last 10 years, so we should get credit for fuel reduction. Or we have fire-wise communities, and we should get credit for the work that's getting on there. We could map those things if we had staff and time to do it. We could lobby our legislator to tell the insurance companies not to use these fire maps. We could do any number of things that absorbs the information being presented by CAL FIRE here and does encourage continued support of resiliency programs. But this letter says CAL FIRE, to some extent, got it wrong. And we want to see layers that will give this kind of micro view of things when the whole goal of the fire hazard map is to give the macro view. So it's on us, you know, with these new maps. Do we need to take a fresh look at the safety plan and our general plan? Well, luckily, we're already going to be doing that. Do we have to update certain conclusions in our community wildfire prevention plan? I probably didn't term that right. Absolutely. When we update our area plans, as Director Turner was talking about, are we going to be taking a look at these fire hazard maps and saying, what are we going to do with that? Yes, absolutely. So it's a planning tool, but we can't turn it around and foist on CAL FIRE the responsibility to go micro and granular with what we do with this data. Their job, and it was hard enough as it was to identify what parts of the county are very high hazard, and they've done that. And I don't see anything particularly useful in this letter attempting to get CAL FIRE to do it. One, they're not going to do it. They're not going to take our suggestions. And two, even if they wanted to, I don't think they would have funding, a legislative mandate, or any clear idea how to add some of the layers we're asking for. So I'll just leave it at that right now.
Well, I disagree, and we do work on all of those planning documents. But the methodology here with the 30 to 50-year horizon is what is problematic, because that isn't taking into account recent burn scars and fuel management work. And if this is going to be used as a tool by the state, then it should be accurate, and it should have, and it should be focused in a micro way on our community. Supervisor Sabatier?
Couldn't disagree with you more, Supervisor Green. The methodology is ridiculous. They're imagining a world where human beings don't exist anymore. 50 years of vegetation growth, you to have a jungle everywhere is what they're looking at. Hence why it's all very high hazard. By looking at a 10-year, when the maps are redone every 5 years, which is their time period that they're looking at updating these maps, then you get a better understanding of where we are today and what could happen 10 years from now if nothing was done. 50 years is just an extreme situation when they're updating the maps every 5 years. Don't act like 50 years are going to happen with nothing, no activity, no nothing. There is nothing in here that's asking CAL FIRE to update. We're looking at all of our local units. They all have this information. It's asking our local units to have the ability to provide an extra layer. We are not asking the state to make that happen for us. In searching for what are some solutions, I spoke to many stakeholders. I will not name names just in case that's a problem. But those things are an easy way to implement locally through our fire units that are not asking for a whole lot. They already have all that information. We need to motivate and incentivize continued defensible space and work, not demoralize and de-incentivize, tripping over my own tongue here, the work that's being done. If you are a homeowner that is spending X amount of dollars to ensure you're providing defensible space, and now you have this map with, whether we believe it or not, insurance companies are going to be using these maps, and there's going to be no proof, show me your web history or your web browser history that you looked at the map. There's no proof that can be said that they used it or not, but then you see your insurance go through the roof, even though this is what you spend each year and this map's not helping us. That is demoralizing. Why should I be spending the money to help save my area only to be burdened by things I can't even afford? Nobody's going to be able to live here. We have to be able to fight this, whether we believe we can fight it or not. We have to attempt to fight it in a way that continues to puts us in a defensible space for our communities and makes it a reasonable map for us to utilize. What they're offering is not a reasonable map at all. And my second point is, I spoke with Ed Roby, and he brought up a good point. We should be sending a letter also to Insurance Commissioner Lara to ensure that we let them be aware of our concern that these maps will be utilized no matter what they say. Some sort of communication with our insurance commissioner, because ignoring that part when that's part of our fears is also not engaging with the appropriate branch of government at the state level. And looking to see if there's consensus that we do the same as well.
I completely agree with sending this to our insurance commissioner. And yes, there is some stuff in here when we talk about mitigation that is all local, but I think we need to do that. At all of our advisory committees, which I think CAL FIRE went and presented this to, a lot of our constituents are waiting for us to have this discussion today as a board, and then they're going to be filling out theirs kind of in coincidence with the Board of Supervisors today. And I think pushing back on this it's mandatory. We have to do this. Whether or not we can win, just as you said, Supervisor, that it gets reconsidered, we need to do this. This is the right thing to do. It is a challenge. It is a big lift. But I look at, obviously the 10-year period instead of the 50-year or 100-year period to being analyzed and looking at those solutions. But this is, I think, just the beginning. I'm glad that we're taking this on today because it is due the 3rd, correct? April 3rd. And like I said, I know that there are many community members from the Middletown Area Town Hall. If they have not already written them, their personal letters, they will be doing that after the board approves this today. So I know it's not a silver bullet or moving in the right direction, but we need to give that voice to both from the board and also to our constituents as we try and push this together to get it reevaluated. Yeah, does it need to be done? Yep, it does. But we need to look at the way we're doing it and the way CAL FIRE is doing it, just ask for that review. So I'm in complete support of it. I support with the language change in the second paragraph there that you had, and continue to push with this item. So
Supervisor,
I
sorry.
encourage as many folks to go to the CAL FIRE website to get that out. If you're a homeowner here in Lake County or even a renter, to make sure that you fill those out, because every county in the state of California is going to be affected, and we will not be the only board responding.
No. Well, and we've seen legislation pop up throughout the state about development in high fire severity areas, and we also can't have our future development hindered by these maps. Supervisor Green.
We should be informed when future development comes up. Gwenoc's going to come back soon enough. When I was still on the city council in Lakeport, Parkside came up because, we have a very high hazard area here 100 yards away from this, but it's in a local responsibility area, so anything goes. As it turns out, CAL FIRE is going to be bringing some additional maps for local responsibility areas now. You're not going to like those either, and neither are the cities. But it is what it is. We should not be demoralized with these maps that say we live in very high fire hazard areas. We have all lived through that. We have seen it with our own eyes. These fires are mega fires. They move with the rapidity that our past land use patterns, our past development patterns, which were probably not cited properly given the fire hazards back then, but would be totally insane to think about building now. I get the idea that it will create challenges, but these challenges are pre-existing. It's not caused by CAL FIRE. It's not caused by this map. It's caused by our new understanding that climate change has made Lake County a more hazardous place for all of us. And instead of demoralizing us or saying that this map is somehow going to disincentivize, is the word, it should do the opposite. It should make people double down. We're not going to tell people, if we're being honest with them, that mitigation efforts are going to make necessarily wholesale changes in our resiliency and stuff like that. People should be supporting that to, number one, save their own lives and hopefully save lives of their neighbors, and two, hopefully mitigate some property damage when these fires do come through. But this is, again, you take issue with their methodology. You don't. You're taking issue with the results, what you think is going to happen with that. And you're saying this is going to happen with insurance, or this is going to disincentivize fire prevention activities. And it's like, no, this is how we, number one, put ourselves at the front of the line for future rounds of funding for mitigation. And two, that we continue to highlight with those public outreach programs to our community. It's like, look, whether you've lived here 50 years or you're just moving to Lake County, you need to know this whole county is a very high hazard area. So when you get some public outreach from a Firewise community or some mitigation grant planning, please take advantage of it. It's more than a strong suggestion. It could very much be a life-saving matter. But to turn around and say, CAL FIRE, you got this wrong, and you need to shorten your time window and do that. Again, you want to bring back something where RCRC or CSAC brings a bill that would do that, I'm all in. You want to send this letter straight to the insurance commissioner and leave CAL FIRE out of it, I'm all in. But we're taking the battle to the one agency that is trying its very best to give us good science and good information that will inform all of our decisions moving forward.
I think we can be critical of this product without being critical of CAL FIRE. We all understand the reality that we live in, but we don't have to accept this mapping and this methodology. Supervisor Sabatier.
And we offer a solution. We're not just griping about what's going on. We offer a solution. Have you looked at the map? Red Hills is high severity. It's got grapes. How is that
miles.
high severity? The map methodology, again, believes that everything stops and growth occurs for 50 years without any human activity. That makes no sense. These vineyards are here to stay for a long time. They are a green belt to actually protect communities when you have ag in between communities and where the fires are. We've seen that. I've seen that around my in-laws' place where it just went in like 90-degree angles as to what was burning rather than what, in comparison to where the ag area was. So, and that was from the Valley Fire coming towards Lower Lake, towards Highway 29. So the map is completely inaccurate based on our current standings. We're not saying ignore the map. We're saying do a 10-year increment rather than a 50-year increment, because we do want to know what potential hazards are so that we can help focus where our attention needs to be for mitigations. But to ask for a 50-year map and everything is a focus for mitigation, that makes zero sense. And again, potential hardship on us in creating a viable opportunity for the future. SB 50 from 2 years ago was trying to pass a law that no development in high severity areas, meaning no more development in 93% of Lake County. To support that ideology is to not support the county. We're trying to offer a medium from you do nothing to what they're trying to do. We're offering a solution saying this is not healthy what you're proposing for us. We understand the dangers or the hazards, and we're doing everything we can about it, but don't hurt us with this ridiculous methodology that they're currently using.
Supervisor Crandall?
Yes, I was glad that you said that about solutions, because a couple of weeks back when I went to Sacramento, that was one of the comments was, how are you preparing? What are you doing? And letters like this, initiatives like this give us a chance to say, this is what we're doing. We have solutions. We just need help, so I just wanted to highlight that. I don't know if it helps, but.
Okay, do we have anybody from the public? Anyone in the chambers? We have one hand up, Betsy Kahn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Board of Supervisors, for allowing me to comment on this. It's unfortunate that this item is before the board today, since the deadline for submitting comments to the state hazard mitigation plan was closed on the 24th of March. It would have been helpful to use this to add to those comments. However, I just want to point out that in the last couple of years, the Office of the State Fire Marshal and other agencies at the state level have created opportunities and ways to address long-term recovery and pre-fire planning. It seems to me that this particular map and this particular approach, as Supervisor Sabatier was talking about, is not adequate to the task. It needs to be integrated with the other efforts, such as the new Department of Community Assistance at the Office of the State Fire Marshal and all of their efforts to identify risks and hazards and how to make this work. I think it's really an important dialogue to have, in spite of the credibility of Supervisor Green's comments. We need to contribute to a shared evolution, and that evolution is happening quite rapidly at the Office of the State Fire Marshal. Very soon, as again, CDD Director Turner mentioned or explained, we're going to be about updating our safety element of the general plan. The new rules for doing so include a review of all existing subdivisions, especially for the focus on evacuation routes where there's only one way in and one way out. These are all tools that need to be harmoniously put together, and this particular map is not quite good enough to help us succeed at doing what we need to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Betsy. Okay, I don't see any other public input. I will bring it back to the board. Supervisor Sabatier?
Yeah, I just have a quick question for Supervisor Simon. I know that you're on a state fire board, or I may not have that title correct. Is this something that can be brought through that avenue as well, or just kind of curious as to?
Yeah, now I think it should go to the State Board of Fire Services, yeah. I agree, we should pin this letter also to them and too, as we do these letters as they're going out.
Okay.
So we got one, the governor's office. All right, are we sending it to the governor's office too? Did anyone mention that or no?
I think that's a good part of the conversation to make sure we're sharing it with the appropriate folks. I believe we're sending it through the comment line for CAL FIRE right now, but I think the governor's office is definitely the State Fire Board, our commissioner, insurance commissioner, and obviously our representatives as well.
Excellent.
Okay, so,
OES, I don't know if
OES.
they're typically after the fact, not before I don't know.
yeah. Okay, so it's going to go to Chief Tyler, the governor, the insurance commissioner, and our state electeds,
And the fire board.
and the fire board. So 6 CCs? Do we have consensus on this?
Yeah.
Okay. And then do we need to take action on the letter?
Madam Chair, I move to approve the letter in response to CAL FIRE's fire hazard severity zone maps and authorize the chair to sign
As
with the amendment and sending it to all those as discussed just now.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay. Thank you, staff, for putting this letter together.
Thank you.
Great job.